Thank you for joining me today for the Great Catholic Parishes webinar, Learning from the Protestants. And thank you so much for joining me all over the country and literally around the world. And it just helps me remember that we are all coming at this in different cultures, different contexts. And before we get started, I just want to call out the elephant in the room. This idea of learning from the Protestants, for some people, it's offensive almost. For others, it's very natural. They're very open. And I just want to be clear. I'm not telling you to become Protestant. I'm not telling you that everything they do is right or they have the best theology or everything I'm going to talk to you about today is not perfect, but it's things that we can learn from. And it's things where they're trying to connect with people and help people connect with Christ. And so, with that heart and mindset, I hope that you'll listen today more open mindedly and open heartedly than critically. I worked for a pastor once who I was criticizing the work of a church down the street that was far more successful than us. And I was trying to find things wrong with it. And my pastor said, "You know, John, I like the way they're doing it wrong better than the way that we're not doing it at all." Now, those words really stung, but I think they're a good reminder. They were a humble, wise reminder that we can learn from others. And we don't just have to criticize the fact that what they're doing is not perfect. We can learn from what they're doing and maybe take some things away from it. So I hope that that's the heart and mind that you'll have today as we look at this topic of learning from the Protestants. So let's jump into that. As many of you know, my organization, Great Catholic Parishes, was first inspired by the work of Bill Simon and Claire Henning in the book Great Catholic Parishes. And Bill and Claire are two great mentors of mine, people I really admire, who've done so much great work for the church. And part of that great work is this book where they interviewed 250 Catholic leaders around the country and identified 4 essential practices of thriving parishes. And the reason I bring this up is because in those 4 practices, what they found were 4 things that I would say we're going to see today in the non-denominational churches that we look at. They share leadership. They're not just pastor or clerically led, not just staff led. They delegate leadership. They raise up leaders. They empower them and release them into ministry. They also foster spiritual maturity and have a plan for discipleship for people. Beyond just going through programs, they meet people where they're at and accompany them on their journey with Christ. They excel on Sundays, have a great weekend experience, and they evangelize effectively. They think about who are the people in our community that don't know Christ yet, that need to know Christ, and how can we help introduce them to Christ? These are 4 practices of great parishes. But I think we'll see today, these are 4 practices of any great church, any body of Christ that is trying to honor Christ and follow and fulfill the call, the Great Commission. They're following these 4 practices. I also just want to clarify that when I talk today about the Protestant church, again, I'm not just talking about the Protestant church at large. I'm talking more specifically about American non-denominational churches in our communities. And these are the things that I see them doing that are drawing great numbers, helping them connect with families and helping people experience life change. I don't think you can discredit that. People's lives are being changed, and we can learn from how that is happening there. The first thing is that they have great communications and marketing. I was just talking to a consultant about this yesterday. If you ever see a new non-denominational church popping up in your city, they call it a church plant. Maybe they're meeting in a gymnasium, in a school. Maybe they're renting space from another church. They all have great marketing and communications. You don't see one of them that have a bad website or a bad logo. And I think we can learn from their emphasis on that. It helps you connect with people. Number one, they have a great website. They all have great websites. If you want to know what a great church website looks like, just Google some non-denominational churches in your area and look at them. And I want to point out some of the things that make them great. First of all, you can tell they're very simple and clean. They don't have 20 items across the top menu and pop-ups everywhere and banners everywhere. They usually just have one image, or they have live video in the background of the website, but they always have pictures of people. You know, when I look at Catholic websites, I so often see pictures of the outside of buildings or empty pews or statues or flowers. And those things don't connect with people. People connect with people. So as you look through this website, you'll see pictures of people everywhere that you go. And it's the same layout. It's simple, it's clean, it's clear. Here on the youth site, youth page, they have, click here to register for Senior Sunday. They don't have a huge, ugly banner about it. It's just a button right there, easy to see immediately. You can take those, you can remove them and add them on your website whenever you want. It's a simple thing to do. So the next thing they have is that they are visitor focused. This is their visitor page. It says, nice to meet you. Finding a church home can be hard, but we want to make it easy. And they do make it easy. If you go just below that, you'll see a video that says what to expect when you visit our church. And on that video, you'll see the lobby, you'll see the sanctuary, you'll see what worship looks like. You may hear a snippet from a sermon. You'll hear a welcome from their pastor. This is their pastor, and you can see these are pictures of people. They tell you about their lives. And as I said, people connect with people. If you go back to the first page of the website, you'll see the first page is visitor focused. It says, are you looking for a church home? Because they know that so many of our website visitors are that. They're visitors. They're not members of our parish looking for information. They're people searching for somewhere to go to church. And the first thing you do there is you can click on a button that says, get to know Irving Bible Church. So visitor focused, visitor centered, visitor sensitive. They don't use insider language. They try to help you understand better what it means to be a part. And they show you pictures of their staff. I think this is so important. With today's smartphones, it's so easy to have great portraits of all of our staff. You don't have to be a photographer to do that. So just get your staff together, bring them to a pretty area on the outside of your parish or inside where there's stained glass windows or something, nice lighting, and just get portraits of your staff. When I see a staff listing on a parish website and it's all just names and contact information, it makes it really impersonal. Again, our goal is to connect people with people. And if I click on one of these staff positions, I see, oh, this is Jason. He works with Alpha and Recovery. He seems like a friendly person. He has a wife and 3 kids. He likes golfing, fishing, the outdoors. He loves the Dallas Cowboys. I can connect with him even before I meet with him. And then you see there's the little mailbox logo there, icon. It's easy to contact Jason. It's not confusing. Again, we want to make it easy for people, and we want to help them connect with people at your parish. The first question on this parish website when I go for more information is not, are you a registered parishioner? Is how can we help you? So they also are really good at sharing their vision for their parish, for their community, for their city. And so this is a video that talks about the mission of this church. And their mission statement is very simple. God is calling the people of Irving Bible Church to become a multi-ethnic movement of missionary disciples formed in the way of Jesus for the sake of the world. This is simple. It's easy to understand. I think so often our mission statements for our parishes that I see are paragraphs of religious language and theology, right? And they're even poetic sometimes, but you would be hard pressed to even get the pastor to recite it to you from memory. Mission statements need to be simple, clear, actionable, and I need to see how I could fit in to that mission. I read recently that to start a movement, you help people know that they belong, you give them a vision for where you're going, and you help them understand how they can be a part of that vision. And I think we could learn from that, right? This is a diverse, multi-ethnic community. Everyone is welcome. We're a community of missionary disciples of Jesus, that we're growing in the way of Jesus. And we're doing this for the sake of the world, for our city and our world, that they might know the love and the message of Christ. Very simple and clear, easy to understand. The last thing about the website is that it looks great on mobile. We used to say that we should make websites mobile friendly, and now we're saying we should make them mobile first, because the majority of the people looking at your website are looking at it on a smartphone, especially visitors, because visitors are sitting at home on Saturday night going, man, I'd kind of like to get back to church. What should I do? And they Google it. And if you're not ranked well in the Google search engines and your website doesn't look good on a phone, you are drastically less likely to get visitors. And I will also say that Google is actually punishing you. If your website is not mobile friendly and mobile first, they will push you down in the search engine rankings. So this is vital to get done and get done right. You can see it looks just as good on a phone as it does on the computer screen. So a great website needs to have images of people, needs to have a simple menu, needs to be visitor friendly, needs to have videos where people can see and experience what it's like to be at your church. They have a staff directory with current pictures. I say current because the worst thing is to look up a staff directory and you call or email someone and you get a message back, oh, sorry, they haven't worked here for 5 years. Well, that's a problem. That's going to really hinder our ability to connect with people. Have a clear mission and vision that people can get behind and get excited about being a part of. And then lastly, make sure it looks great on mobile. In this area of communications, I want to touch on one more thing, and that is the power of telling stories. We're so often just telling people what we're doing and how they can be involved. Here's the information. We leave out the inspiration. And again, with today's smartphones that have HD video recording, 4K, we can make really good videos and make them available to people through our website, social media, where we can share the great things that we're doing. Here, Chase Oaks Church loves to share stories of outreach in the community through videos, which you'll see one later. But they also share stories of life change, people's whose lives have become transformed by Christ at their church. And here's Amber's story. She shares her story. She shares a video. And I have actually met someone who was searching for a church. They had zero religious affiliation or background whatsoever, but someone in their sponsor in their codependency program said, you have to go to some sort of religious gathering. And so she just Googled church in her area, and she found one with a great website. She watched some stories of life change on their website and said, boy, I want that for my life. So she visited, she was introduced to a small group, and today that young woman, Jennifer, has converted. She's been baptized. She leads others to Christ. She prays with people. She's had a radical life change that's impacting her whole family. And it really started at a great website that inspired her. So don't underestimate the value of this. So when we talk about great communications, have a great website, cast a clear mission and vision for people for what God wants for their lives, and tell inspiring stories. Don't just tell them about it, show them through an inspiring story of what God can do in their life as God has done this in other people's lives. So great communications and website is number one. Number two is, not surprisingly, an extraordinary weekend experience. And I put website and communications before this because this is how people find out about your extraordinary weekend experience, is through your social media, your website, your communications. And an extraordinary weekend experience starts with hospitality. Some places it starts in the parking lot. This became especially popular during COVID when people were doing parking lot church, or you couldn't really greet people as close during some of the quarantine time. But these have continued to be popular. Maybe you recruit your young adults or your youth group to get out there to welcome people. And, it may seem a little silly or, too informal or fun for a church. But I'll tell you, when you pull in the parking lot and you see a sign that says Sunday Fun Day, or you look amazing today, we're happy to see you again, and you'll see a smiling face, it's kind of hard not to start your church experience with a warm heart and a smile. And that's what we want, right? We want people to know that this is the house of God. You are loved and welcomed. You belong here. That's a great way to do it. Also, when you pull into the parking lot, signage is really important, especially if you're a visitor. And a lot of these churches have visitor parking. And if you're a visitor, the parking lot could be something that actually turns you off and turns you away from the church. Man, somebody cut me off. Somebody pulled into my parking space. There's all kinds of things that happen in church parking lots. But if you can find a parking space easily as a visitor, it's really, really helpful. Again, it starts your visit with a great experience. I was sadly speaking to a parish recently who said, yeah, we had first-time visitor parking, but we got rid of it because our parishioners complained. Well, if that's you, if you're in that situation as a leader and people are complaining about first-time visitor parking, I really urge you, don't give in to that. Help them understand, here's why we want to do this. Because we want to be a growing church introducing people to Christ. We want to be a parish where people feel welcome. And I know that you've been here a long time, and I'm grateful for all that you've contributed, but we also need new people to discover this place. And we want our visitors to know they're welcome. You really have to cast a vision, help them understand it, but don't give in to that fear. Create other parking for seniors, for young families. Young family parking is a really important thing. Imagine trying to get 3 kids out of a car and into a church through a parking lot and keeping them all alive. That's a great feat, especially for a single mom. But what if there was parking for families with kids? That's another thing that could be great. Signage is really helpful when you don't have enough volunteers. You can put signs where you'd like to put a volunteer. So you can put a sign that says, welcome, we're glad you're here, or here's direction to our hospitality for guests or for visitors. Here's where the nursery is. Have plenty of signage. They always do. It always looks great at these churches. And I would say, especially if you're a church that is on the street, if the front doors of your church go down to a sidewalk, that's a great place to put an A-frame that just says, welcome, these are our mass times. We'll hope that you'll join us. Everyone is welcome. It's not very expensive, and it can really have a great impact. Once you get into these churches and you're in the service itself, they always have connection cards. And these will be in the seat back in front of you. These are for visitors. And it doesn't say anything about money, right? It's not an envelope. It just says, hey, we'd love to help you get better connected. How often have you been here? Are you a first-time visitor? Is there anything we could help you with? Kids, youth, serving, volunteering, baptism. If this is a Catholic parish, you could say, hey, would you like to become Catholic? Would you like to meet someone or talk with someone? Would you like to know more about our children's or our nursery? But I think the great thing here is that they say, do you have any prayer needs? And I've seen these introduced at the beginning of a service, and they just say, hey, if you're a visitor here, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. And I want you to know that later in this service, there's going to be a time of offering and giving. If you're a visitor, we don't want you to give anything at all. This worship experience today is our gift to you, but we would love to know how we can help you. So if you'll fill this out, you can drop it in the basket or leave it at the welcome desk. I actually was reading about a church today that they have a first-time visitor gift. And they say, bring this to the welcome desk, and we'd love to give you a gift to thank you for visiting our church today. And so that could be a cup with your logo on it. It could be a t-shirt. It could be a devotional. But these things make people feel welcome. If the only thing in the back of the pew in front of me is an envelope, that tells me there's only really one thing that you want, right? And that's money. We'll talk more about giving later, but be sure that you help your visitors know that you're glad that they are there and that you want to pray for them. If nothing else, just let us know how we can pray for you. These churches always have welcome centers in the lobby. These welcome centers are easy to see. You can see the signage is great here. You can't miss it. It's up high. I always tell people when they put in a welcome kiosk or a welcome center, put your sign up high. If it's just on the front of that, if it's on the front of that kiosk there, then no one's going to see it whenever the room fills up with people. But you may not have this much room. You may have an older parish with an older church that has a small vestibule or narthex area. There are different sizes you could do this in. You could just do it in a little corner space with a smaller kiosk, or you could just have a banner. These are inexpensive. You could just put a welcome banner in the corner where someone stands next to it. This is a staff member or a volunteer, and they stand next to it and they welcome people. So they answer questions about the sacraments, about signing up for things, small groups. Whenever you have announcements at the end of Mass, hopefully you don't do 10 of them, but if you have a couple, you can tell people, hey, visit the welcome desk or the welcome kiosk or the welcome banner just outside of the church doors, and you can sign up there or someone will be happy to answer questions for you. I'll also say a lot of times they will have an iPad at this kind of kiosk that's bolted down, it's attached, but it's set on the church's website where you can register for things and sign up for things. So rather than having a physical sign-up sheet, they'll just say, hey, here's the iPad. You can sign up right here. It also helps you get their information accurately, and you don't have to decipher the hieroglyphics of people's handwriting as they're signing up for things. A lot of these churches will have a welcome lunch or a welcome reception. I know the larger ones have a welcome reception after every single service, and sometimes the pastor will stop by for that. Great way to connect with people immediately, where they can meet with a few staff. If you're not big enough, you don't have the bandwidth or the people to do a welcome reception every Mass. What if you did a welcome lunch once a month or quarterly, where you just invite people that want to know more about the parish to come and ask questions and to enjoy a meal? This is St. Francis of Assisi. They're here in Grapevine, Texas, and they have a newcomers brunch after the 10 a.m. Mass a few times a year. Here's one in the summer, one in the fall. Again, this is a great way to connect with new people. It says here they do it every 3 months. I think that's an awesome idea. Kudos to you at St. Francis of Assisi. So think about these things. These are ways that they connect with visitors, first-time visitors. And so often when someone's new, our first question is, would you like to become a registered parishioner? And I just want you to know that that's like asking someone to marry you on a first date, right? If the only option is become a registered parishioner or don't, then I'm going to go somewhere else. But if you'd say, hey, come to our welcome reception, come to our welcome brunch, you can ask questions and learn more about who we are and meet some of our leaders. Well, that's way more inviting. That's something that I would like to do. So one last thing about the weekend experience. At the end of every service, almost every one of these churches will have what they call a ministry time. And that's where you can receive prayer. Now, this can be anything from an extensive ministry time with music, or you could just say, hey, here's some people from our prayer team. If you'd like to receive personal prayer afterwards, we'd love for you to come forward and we'd like to pray for you and join you in praying for whatever struggle you're going through. I've found this to be incredibly attractive and helpful for people. People come to Mass with just all kinds of burdens that as you've come to Mass with different burdens, right? It could be a sickness, a loss, it could be a trouble at work or with your family or marriage. It's so comforting to be able to pray with someone. And so this is one thing that almost all of these churches offer at the end of a service. And I'm actually working with a Catholic church in California right now that's trying to figure out how can we incorporate a personal prayer time at the end of every Mass. They're looking at having a room just off of the church that is adjacent, it's easy to get to, that people can come to receive prayer from trained volunteers who will pray with them after Mass. So think about that. The weekend experience at these non-denominational churches, it starts in the parking lot with great hospitality. They have clear signage and they're friendly and they're welcoming. They have connect cards where you can submit your prayer intentions there, but you can also ask for help or information about different things there. They have a welcome center or a kiosk where you can talk to a person about questions you might have. They will often have a welcome reception or a welcome lunch or a brunch, either monthly or quarterly. And then they have personal prayer ministry at the end. So these are things that I've found to be really inspiring for people, really help connect them to a church. They say that when someone visits a church for the first time, they decide whether it's somewhere that they want to come back to within the first 10 or 15 minutes. What happens during that time? Well, about 75% of these things I talked about happen within the first 10 or 15 minutes. So think about that, but also think about how you can follow up with them afterwards. Before we finish the rest of our webinar, I want to just remind you about the work of Great Catholic Parishes. We do workshops, we do these webinars, we do consulting, and we do cohorts. I did a workshop recently in the Archdiocese of Galveston and Houston, and Father Troy Gately at St. John Vianney brought together 10 parish leadership teams from around the Archdiocese for a day where we worked with them on growing volunteers, on discipling their volunteers, growing their volunteer numbers, and raising up volunteer leaders and mentoring them and making room for new leaders in the parish. It was a great day. They did some great work. We talked about some of the things that you've heard in other webinars of mine, but it was a time for teams to work on these ideas together. This is Father TJ at St. Martha and Mary and Lazarus in Houston, great parish there I've worked with for a few years. But in these workshops, there's different topics that I do them under. I've done a ministries development day where you just invite all of your ministry leaders on a Saturday. And we work throughout the day on how can we grow our ministry? How can we make it better? What challenges are we facing? And each ministry team individually works on growing their ministry and leaves with some action steps and a strategic plan. As you saw, we do them on growing volunteers, multiplying our volunteer numbers and our volunteer leadership. Extraordinary hospitality has been very popular, making every area of our parish a hospitality experience. Really, when someone comes to sacramental prep, that's a hospitality opportunity. When somebody visits a ministry for the first time, that's a hospitality opportunity. It's not just our weekend masses where we focus on hospitality. Staff health and harmony and staff retreats, helping bring unity and vision to staff and to help them connect their work with their faith more, help them find greater satisfaction in serving God. We build all these webinar or these workshops around your specific needs. So I'll meet with you as a pastor or your leadership team to customize this workshop just for your parish. Also want to just remind you that all of these webinars are available on our YouTube channel. You can go there and subscribe. It'll alert you when a new webinar is posted, and you can watch previous webinars. Maybe watch them with your staff as a staff workshop on just growing together in leadership as a staff. All right, that's enough about me. Let's jump back into these last few points of what we can learn from the Protestants. The next thing is that they have relevant engagement opportunities. They're not just recruiting you to come to programs or to sacraments. They're also providing opportunities for you to connect with other people in the church, people in your life stage, people that you can build a community around. And one thing they do is they have life groups. Life groups are similar to a small group, but they're not as time sensitive and they're not as curriculum focused. So a life group is really more about community than it is about a curriculum. While they may do a book study or scripture study, they're really more about week after week connecting with each other, doing life together, and celebrating the joys of life together, and also supporting each other in the struggles of life. And I was a part of a life group for 6 years. And in my life group, we celebrated each other's whenever people had a new birth or a wedding or got a new job or finished graduate school. We celebrated these things together, but we also supported each other in the challenging times. Simple things like moving, or when people were sick, visiting them, bringing them meals, going to funerals for relatives of people in our life group to support them and show them that we care for them and we're there for them. In my mom's church, they call these care groups. But think about these. These are things that go on year long, year after year. And they are a place that people can belong and feel connected. One of my favorite scriptures is in Psalms, where it says, God puts the lonely in families. And while curriculum-based small groups can be good as an on-ramp for people, especially people that may not be able to make a longer-term commitment, I would also consider having things like these life groups that go on year-round, because people's need for community is not based on our schedule. They could move to your city and really need to get connected right away. But if we're only working on this curriculum schedule, it could be 6 weeks or months before they can get engaged. So think about that. They also do this through what we call affinity groups that are faith-based. These could be a running group, an environmental group, creative arts, hiking, cinema club. These are things that people enjoy, have common interests, but they're faith-based and they are faith-focused. So the running group may join together and have a prayer time before they run. The environmental care group, I have a friend that started a small group that would meet on a beach. They lived in Florida. They'd meet at the beach and pick up trash for about an hour, and then they would sit down and have a Bible study. So all these things are kind of like a small group, but they're more affinity-based rather than curriculum-based, but they still have a faith-sharing component in them that says, hey, we're here for more than just this activity. We're here to grow in our faith. I will say that St. Monica's in Santa Monica does a cinema club where they watch a film together that is something that is not a Christian film, but a film that has some sort of existential theme that provides a topic for discussion around that. And sometimes they do it live and in person. Sometimes they do it through Zoom. I think that's really interesting. These are the kind of things that you could invite a friend to who may not be as far along in the faith as you are, and it might interest them, and they could be introduced to the faith as well. Another thing these Protestant churches do is they meet felt needs, practical needs of people. It could be a finance and budget class. Dave Ramsey is really popular, Financial Peace University. There's a lot of other options out there. There's Catholic finance programs or curriculums out there. They could do resume development. You could have people that have worked in executive positions or communications positions that are great with resumes that would help people out. Think about that parish hall that sits empty so many hours during the week. That could be turned into a co-working space. I know this was very popular during 2008 when the economy tanked and a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of these non-denominational churches opened up their church hall, set up a percolator with coffee, and had great Wi-Fi and said, come work on developing your resume or searching for a job in our hall. We'll provide a space for that. ESL classes. All of these are things that people could be retired or work in these areas, be a teacher or a retired teacher, and they could help provide these programs that help meet the needs of people. Listen, historically, the church has helped meet the needs of people in the community. But I don't know that we have changed with the times as people's needs have changed. And so while we still may do soup kitchens or we may do a food pantry, what are other needs that people have that we could help meet that could show them the love of Christ? Another thing that these churches are doing is unique events and outreaches. A father-daughter dance has become incredibly popular over the last 5 years. Think about providing wholesome entertainment and opportunities for families. There's not a lot of places that people can find this out in the world. And you may even have people in your community, if you promoted a father-daughter dance beyond your parish, people would say, boy, I'm not Catholic and I don't go to that parish, but I'd love to take my daughter to a father-daughter dance, right? And it's just another way for them to experience your parish. Date nights are popular. I was just down at St. John Vianney in Houston, and they did a date night. If you provide childcare, it's really just saying, hey, we're going to cater a meal. We're going to provide childcare, and I've seen them bring in Christian comedians, maybe watch a short movie together, but they're around tables with other couples. They're connecting. Their kids are taken care of. It's inexpensive. It's just another great way to help people connect at the parish. Seniors in technology is another thing that I've seen done that helps connect people intergenerationally. Boy, I know that my mom is a senior and I am her primary IT person. And if there were someone in her city who was willing to help her with her phone or her laptop that I could trust, that would be so valuable to me. And again, there's probably young adults in your parish that might be happy to help other people navigate these challenges. Auto repairs ministry is something I've seen a lot of non-denominational churches do. This happens on a Saturday usually, and you just pull in, and if you have a car problem, they'll look at it and help you determine what it might be and maybe direct you towards a mechanic that they trust. Again, for seniors, single moms, people that might not have someone to help them with that, this could be incredibly valuable. And if you're a business manager and you're watching this, you're probably thinking, well, what about liability? Because these auto repair ministries, sometimes they do small repairs like replace an alternator or a battery. I don't know how they navigate all of that with liability, but I know they exist and they're all over the country. So they've figured it out somehow. Maybe we can learn from them how they figured it out. But just Google auto repair ministry. You will see many of them pop up and you can learn from what they're doing. The second to last thing is family service projects. These are really popular. Again, it's another wholesome event that you can provide for families to bring their kids to. And this one is a grandparent and grandchild service time, but it can be parents and children. And you could just set up some service projects in your community. Maybe it's help with repairs on a nursing home. Maybe it's just visiting people that are shut-ins. But if you tell your families, hey, we're doing service projects, want to give you a chance to teach your kids the value of helping and serving others and giving back to the community, I think you'll be surprised, especially with millennial families, how many would love to bring their kids to something like that. The last idea is adopting a school. And adopting a school is something that is really popular here in Texas. And it's just a church says, we want to provide volunteers to your school and help collect things that your school might need. And this is adopting a public school. So I'll show a video at the end of this, but teachers have all kinds of needs for things for their classroom. Sometimes schools need help with repairs. It all depends on your school district and their openness to this, but you just make it clear, we're not here to proselytize. We're not here to change you. We're here to just serve and help people in our community. I like to say that good works open up goodwill that opens hearts to the good news. Good works creates goodwill that opens hearts to the good news. And the church doesn't always have the best reputation in the community, especially in the secular community among schools. But we can do things that help people know we care about our city, we care about our community. Our children go to this school. We'd love to help. So that is number 3. Number 4 is staffing and budgets. These non-denominational churches are probably staffing and budgeting a little bit different than you. And I want to just show you where they're putting a lot of their staffing and budgeting emphasis. The music and the weekend, they're probably investing in a full-time music director is probably their second hire. And the bigger ones are probably paying musicians or vocalists to some degree to be involved in their weekend worship experience to provide great music. Families and children is definitely a great place of investment. Youth and young adults, they probably have a part-time or full-time youth director. I don't know many that don't. Connections and engagement. The bigger ones have someone whose full-time job is connections and engagement, helping people get connected to small groups and service opportunities, and definitely following up with visitors. They are very good at making sure that every visitor gets personally connected with a phone call, a visit, never just a letter or an email. And then lastly, communications and media. And this is probably the easiest one for you to make immediate strides in and investing in. You can hire people part-time. There are companies that you can outsource this to. And I want to just recommend a couple. One is Emily at Gloria Marketing. Now, I am not endorsing these companies as someone that I get paid to promote. These are just companies that I've come across that I've seen do great work. So I'll put a link in the email that comes out after this to Gloria Marketing. But Emily just does great work. She's Catholic. She serves Catholic parishes and Catholic businesses. And she does great work for you that represents your parish where maybe you couldn't afford a communications person. You can contract her part-time and she'll do great work. If you want to beef up your website and make it better, make it great, my friend Dan Rogers worked with LPI to create a great website builder. And this is something that they also provide staff that will work with people at your parish to help create the website that would be best for your parish. So check out these two companies if you want to improve your communications and media. They're both doing great work. On the staffing end of things, these non-denominational churches are definitely investing in staff development. They weekly have a time of faith sharing or worship together where they are growing as disciples together. They practice together what they preach to the whole church, what they want for the whole church. And so they do faith sharing together, they worship together, they pray together every single week. They do leadership development together. They may be reading through a leadership book or watching videos on leadership or taking turns sharing little devotionals about leadership with each other, which helps them grow as leaders as they put that together. They do fun days or nights together as a staff. They don't just get together to work. They'll go bowling or go to putt-putt or top golf or just have dinner out together or at somebody's house, have Christmas parties, obviously, but they're doing throughout the year regularly, they're doing life together as a staff. They're growing together in their friendships and in their faith together. That's really important. They're going to conferences and retreats. You may not be able to hire someone that has all the gifts and talents and skills that you need for that position, but you can send them to a conference where they learn more about it. And I would say for any staff member, ongoing education in their vocation is a great way that we can invest in them. And lastly, they're doing consistent evaluations and coaching. They have a very clear professional system of hiring, of job descriptions, of evaluations, and ongoing coaching. This is somewhere that I see us in the Catholic Church fall very short. And it's something that's really important if you want to have great staff, if you want to keep great staff, and if you want to develop staff. You got to have clear job descriptions. You got to have a very clear and fair and consistent evaluations process. And you've got to coach people up and help them know how they can get better at what they do. I'm working on one of these that I hope to make available to parishes around the country. Stay tuned for that. The last thing I'll say about staff, and this is the hardest one for Catholic teams to embrace, it seems, is that for these non-denominational churches, parishioner-facing staff work on Sundays. If they work with small groups or youth or families or ministries, they show up not every Sunday, but at least a couple of Sundays a month, they'll be at a service and they'll be clearly identified there and they'll be connecting with people. You can't really know your parishioners if the only time that you're there is Monday through Friday. And they see Sunday as their Super Bowl. This is their biggest day of the week. This is when 80% of their parishioners are there, is only on Sundays. And so, again, these people that work on a Sunday, they take another day of the week off, but it's really valuable. They could work at the welcome desk. I would also say that there's a parish in Princeton, Minnesota, Christ Our Light. They have done something really cool where their staff do the welcome at the beginning of Mass. And when they do that welcome, they tell people who they are, what area they serve in, what their job title is, and what they love about their job. And they share their role from the why. Why is this role important to me? Why is it important to the parish? Why is it important to God? And it's a time for people to get to know the staff more and identify them. And then after Mass, they could stop by the welcome kiosk and say, hey, I heard you talking about sacramental prep or RCIA. I'd love to know more about that, right? Great way to kind of sneak in announcements as well. All right, let's talk about our last topic. They have a dynamic stewardship culture. I'm sure you've been looking at all of this. You've been looking at the buildings and you've been looking at the staff and the volunteers and thinking, well, I need a lot more volunteers and a lot more money if I'm going to be doing that sort of thing. And I will say that these non-denominational churches probably are doing better in collections and have more volunteers than your average Catholic church. When we look at giving, research shows us that Protestant giving is about double what Catholic giving is. It's about 2.8% of people's annual income versus 1.4% is what Protestants versus Catholic giving looks like. And so that's not based on demographics. That's consistent. It's a 2.8% versus a 1.4%, regardless of whether it's a wealthy parish or a poor church, it's the same. So why is that? Why is the giving more? Well, I would say first is they teach on generosity. They approach it from a generosity standpoint rather than an obligation standpoint. And they do it joyfully. They talk about the joy of giving, the joy of living generously. And they talk about it from a discipleship standpoint. Part of being a disciple is using what God's given us to bless others. We read this in the book of Acts with the early church. So they make it a regular part of discipleship, a regular part of their speaking and talking, and they speak about it unapologetically. They don't say that this is something we have to do. They say that this is something that we get to do as disciples of Jesus. These churches also practice generosity. They don't just keep this money and use it for themselves. They give it to different programs in the community. They give it to ministries and missions around the world. And they share stories of their generosity. So what they'll say is, hey, as you're giving today, remember that your generosity helps fund this after-school program. Your generosity helps this mission in Haiti that works with orphan kids. Your generosity helps this homeless outreach. They share impact stories of how you're giving. Through giving, you're a part of doing great things. And I think research shows us that millennials are far more likely to give to a cause than an institution. So if we frame our giving around a cause focus, and of course we have to be doing this great work to talk about this great work, but rather than an institutional focus, that's important as well. Most of the giving at these non-denominational churches is digital, and that either happens through the website, through an app, through QR codes, or through something like you see here, a digital giving center. I like to call these ATMs, automatic tithing machines. But you'd be surprised how many people, even if they give digital, they want to give in the church. They want to give at the place of worship. And to be fair, anyone under 50 coming to your parish does not have a checkbook. And they probably don't carry much cash. So how are they going to give, and when are they going to give if it's not digital? I know some churches and some Catholic parishes that have cards in the pew back that has a QR code on it that just says, hey, if you'd like to give digitally, you can use this QR code, and you can even drop this card in the offering basket as it goes by to show that you gave digitally. But that leads me to my last point. As giving has gotten more digital, many of these churches don't pass the basket at all. They may still have an offering moment where they say, hey, this is how you can give towards our church. Here's a QR code. There's something in the bulletin. You can give on our website. Remember that as you give generously, you get to be a part of the great work in the community that we do and around the world, but they don't pass a basket. So I think that is a trend that is becoming more and more a reality, as there's nothing for people to put in the basket, as they don't carry cash or carry a checkbook. So something to think about. I would say, as we talk about stewardship, we see these two areas, giving and serving. Kind of those are the two primary pillars of stewardship if we talk about time, talents, and treasure. Giving and serving. So serving would be volunteerism. And they do this, they promote it positively. They talk about, again, opportunities that you get to be a part of. They don't say, we are desperate for volunteers in our nursery. We're desperate for volunteers for this outreach. They say, hey, if you love investing in children and the next generation of the church, you get to be a part of that by serving in our nursery. If you'd like to help people out, here's a great way to do that. And they'll share a story about it, right? But they have a fun volunteer culture that may involve t-shirts. I think these are cool. There's a message of unity and a message of volunteerism. But these kind of things, people see them, they go, where'd you get that shirt? Oh, I got it by serving at this outreach, or I got it through serving in the nursery or working with the youth. They create a fun volunteer culture. They have a great training program for new volunteers that makes you feel accompanied in serving. You're not just kind of thrown into this position. It's led by a staff or a volunteer leader, but they train their volunteers well. They also appreciate and celebrate their volunteers well. This is someone who's recognized as Volunteer of the Week on a website or through an email. And they also throw great volunteer celebrations. This church calls their volunteers the Dream Team. And I think that's kind of a fun way to elevate what it means to be a volunteer. But this event is like a red carpet event. People dress up for it. They have it catered. There's tablecloths and china at the meal. And they go all out to thank their volunteers and serve them and lavish their love and gratitude on them. They also share great stories of things their volunteers have been a part of at a gathering like this. So the sharing impact stories can really help invite new people to serve. People sharing the story of how serving impacted their life and impacted their small group, impacted the community, inspires other people to get involved. And I want to finish by sharing a video from one of these stories that Chase Oaks Church has done. This video really captures a few things. First of all, it's during COVID, so don't be surprised to see masks. It was a different time then. But the needs were the same. They're serving a community elementary school that their church has adopted. And this woman invited her small group to help her serve there. And let's take a look at this now and hear about the impact that they were able to make in this school.
Hi, my name's Mary Jane Ballard. I was invited to be the team leader for Razor Elementary, and along with that, I brought my life group in to serve with me, and we developed a great team of people around that. Recently, we delivered to Razor a trunk load of snacks for the students as well as Lysol wipes for the teachers. They were very encouraged by both of those. As you know, it's hard to get Lysol wipes. And we've served in many ways at Razor over the last couple of years. And it's just been a blessing to us each and every time that we go and serve. We've done a Christmas coffee cart. We stroll the hallways, bringing Christmas cheer to the teachers. We do prayers and pencils at the beginning of each school year. We leave a prayer and a pencil on each desk, and we pray over each student throughout the campus. I feel the teachers are really encouraged by our partnership with Razor. They're just so appreciative of the little things that we do. And when I say little things, they aren't anything of great grandeur. They're just things that we will do by supporting them through prayer, little gifts throughout the year and encouragement, and having a team around them. I feel they feel real loved. I would really like to invite everybody to join a team or get connected to a life group. That way you can get out in your community, you can love on people. The Here for Good project for our life group and for the Razor team means taking love to our community. And our community is Razor Elementary. It's what we do, that's who we support, that's who we care for.
What a great story. And as I said, with smartphones today, you could put together a high-def video like that. It may not have all the production quality they have, but pretty much anybody on a small budget could put together a short video just sharing a great story of volunteerism, of growing in faith, of impacting the community, and of involving others in your parish to do it. So very doable. Encourage you to make some of those things and share with people the great work that you're doing. All right, well, that's our time. I hope those 5 things, you may find a few nuggets in there that you could use, a few inspirations. If you have any questions, reach out to me directly, john@greatcatholicparishes.org, john@greatcatholicparishes.org. I'd love to help you any way that I can, answer any questions that you have, or just encourage you. I know there's a lot of you doing great work out there. I love to hear about it. Thank you so much again for joining me today. God bless.